the midnight sun and the polar night. A land of unyielding cold and a climate so harsh that it has managed to keep people at bay yet. The journey itself is so tough that survival is a question for the fittest only. Even if you manage to survive the weather, watch out for polar bears that can tear you apart within seconds. We are talking about the Arctic region. The place is mostly characterized for its temperature, which can drop below -30 degrees. While summers are marked by the sun out for the full day, in winters there is no sunlight at all. Besides polar bears, the place is home to many other specimens such as migrating birds, whales, seals, and Arctic foxes. While the place is rich in natural resources, the remote location and the treacherous journey of reaching there itself present challenges that are enough to scare people away. The thick layer of snow and ice sheets combined with freezing temperatures make it next to impossible for human settlement and navigation purposes. However, the Arctic's closest neighbor Russia has other things to say about the icy land. Most of the Arctic's region is a part of Russia, which naturally indicates that they have made several attempts to explore the place and find what is really hiding beneath all that ice. While some discoveries have been quite beneficial from a tactical standpoint, others have left their jaw dropped. Icebreakers and the changing climate of the place can turn out to be a game changer for Russia's economy, saying that the Russians have several accounts of incidents that indicate the presence of something more in the ice, rather than natural resources. From massive mountains that are beneath the sea to possible alien sightings, there is much to explore there. Put on your jackets as we talk about this, is what the Soviets saw while diving in the Arctic. 1. Severnaya Zemlya. No, it's not the name of a final villain from an arcade game. It is a breathing environment that remains secluded from the rest of the world. While there have been countless observations of remote corners and unexplored land on Earth, this might top the list for being the most mysterious out of all. While the Amazon is filled with dense jungles and barren deserts in Afghanistan, making them hard to explore, this place is in a league of its own. The place is remarked by thick layers of life and is situated in a geologically difficult location, which makes it a challenge in itself to access it. Forget about research and unraveling the secrets of the place. The first and foremost task for anyone wanting to get there is to reach there at all. The place's nickname also has an interesting origin. It was recently discovered in 1913, therefore being labeled last discovered land on Earth. Glaciers and polar deserts constitute most of the landscape of the place, which is surrounded by icy cold waters. In a nutshell, it might be home to the squirrel from the Ice Age, trying to crack his nut over there. As much as we would like to believe it, this is definitely not the case. This hard-to-reach archipelago is located off Siberia's Taimyr Peninsula in the Kara Sea. While the place was discovered in 1913, it remained visually unmapped until the 1930s. Severnaya Zemlya translates to the North Island, which is made of 4 major islands: October Revolution, Bolshevik, Komsomolets, and Pioneer. These 4 major islands, combined with 70 small islands, form a gigantic mass that spans up to 37,000 square kilometers. Solen Jensen, a marine expedition leader and polar guide, has been involved with the study and research of the place, along with scientific teams and documentary crew. While his name is not officially affiliated with the place, his contributions have been significant in shedding light on an unexplored creation of nature. While the place presents its challenges to humans, some species have managed to thrive in the unforgiving conditions of the place and proudly call it their home. The island mainly accounts for walrus, polar bears, and birds who continue to play their part in the cycle of nature. The presence of polar bears and the place being a nesting ground for ivory gulls makes it a hotspot for researchers and scientists alike. When one studies such places and gets to know them, one can't help but ponder that no one can hide itself better than nature. Only the best ships and people with immense experience can even plan to set foot on the island and make an attempt for the rest of the world to witness. 2. Lomonosov and Mendeleev Ridge. Did you know that Denmark, Canada, and Russia have been in a constant state of war for a long time? Yes, the 3 countries have indeed been involved in a battle for a long time now, since it was discovered. But no, this is not a world war or an armed conflict, so no person is at risk here. Now, that tension is out of the way, let's have a look at what the conflict is all about. In 1948, the Soviets came across unexpected shallow waters that were situated in the north end of the new Siberian islands. This brought in a previous assumption to be questioned once again. The assumption was that the sea in the Arctic region was not a large featureless basin, but it is separated by 2 different ridges. It was after the discovery of this ridge that it was coined after the poet and naturalist Mikhail Lomonosov. Following this, the ridge was recognized as the Lomonosov Ridge. The Arctic is already a challenging place from the point of research, as the frigid climate and thick sheets of ice comprising most of the terrain make it nearly impossible to navigate the vast land and uncover its hidden secrets. After countless efforts from the three countries trying to research and gather evidence as to what it is, they are more focused on claiming the ice ridge as theirs. Denmark states that the mountain range is an extension of the territory of Greenland. Canada, on the other hand, claims that it is an extension of the Ellesmere Island, which is located in the territory of Nunavut. The Russians stand by their statement of the ridge being an extension of the Siberian archipelago Franz Josef Island. Relying on evidence is becoming hard because of one critical factor. All three countries have avoided obstacles that lie within the 1,700 kilometers mountain range. But what happens is that the surrounding ice sheets can also drop in rocks and other debris that gets tossed into the waters. What happens is that the researchers get confused in understanding whether the rock they researched on is a part of the ridge or just a regular rock. A team of researchers led by Christian Markussen was able to dredge the ridge at a 3 kilometers range. Along with other material, they came across an orange lump, which was the size of a ball. While no one paid attention to it, one of them cut it open to reveal traces of manganese oxide within the orange rock. Using beryllium isotopes, the age of the rock was measured, and it was confirmed that it was, after all, a part of the mysterious ridge. The rock dates back to 8 million years ago. While the initial mountain itself was formed much earlier than this timeline, the rock is estimated to be a recent formation, as the modules inside the rock take a lot of time to develop. Running parallel to it is Mendeleev Ridge, which is located approximately 1,500 to 2,000 kilometers away from the East Siberian Islands. The ridge is known to be situated 1,500 to 2,000 meters below sea level and is marked by steep slopes and flat-topped features. It was discovered during one of the Soviet expeditions in the 20th century, but the precise origins of the ridge still remain a mystery due to the challenges the location presents. The Russian Arctica experiment in 2007 has shed some light on the geological structure and other details of the massive ridge. Apart from Russia, several countries, including the United States, Canada, and European nations, have conducted seismic surveys over the landmass to get information about it. However, Russia has shown major interest in this, as this gives them a chance to claim ownership of the Arctic, as both the ridges are supposedly an extension of the Siberian Islands. Despite its massive size, the ridge has an overall mysterious reputation which consists of several codes that the scientists have not been able to crack yet. One of which is the geological outlook of the ridge. As per scientists, this seems to be a part of a much bigger mass of land, but its current status can be related to tectonic or volcanic activities, the nature of which is still unclear. Despite being located in the same geological location, there are several distinctions and similarities between the two ridges we spoke of. Both are massive on their terms and have certain mysteries surrounding them. However, the most prominent question still stands. From where did the ridges emerge in the first place, and how were they hidden for such a long time from the world? 3. Classified military operations. More often than not, nature has been used as an advantage when it comes to wars. Depending on the location of a particular country and its geographic region, the natural surroundings have been utilized multiple times as a shield or an attacking front for invading countries and protecting the homeland. Russia did the same during the Cold War when it used its advanced technological capabilities and stationed nuclear submarines in the Arctic Sea. This tactic played a crucial role for the Russians to maintain their strategic position and advantage against countries that were not in favor of NATO. Their marine power boasted submarines such as the Typhoon class, which was one of the biggest submarines to be ever built at the time, and the Bory class, which carried ballistic missiles. Apart from impressive firepower, the submarines had a tactical advantage where they remained undetected by water vessels that were above the sea and aerial satellites that were not equipped enough to spot the submarines hidden deep in the ocean. The Soviets used sonar and an internal navigation system to avoid detection. Additionally, the ice gave them sufficient cover to practice an extended period of routine drills. Another technology used by the Soviets was Lenin, which was a nuclear-powered icebreaker. It was used to get through thick layers of ice and make way for the submarines to be stationed there. The harsh conditions forced the Soviets to develop communication systems that would operate sufficiently in the icy climates and under the sea. Moreover, most of the details regarding their practices during the Cold War have been kept hidden or in the form of classified documents. Even if someone tried to get too close to what they were doing, they were often provided with wrong information to keep their methods hidden. 4. Oil and gas reserves. Oil and gas are probably the most essential resources that the world relies on. From cooking to vehicles, gas and oil are used in multiple industries, often forming the backbone of many sectors. A recent study showed that Russia's Arctic region, which is rich in significant oil and gas reserves, has become a focal point of both economic and geopolitical strategy. The Arctic Sea, especially the Siberian Shelf, is known to harbor vast hydrocarbon deposits, which include major oil fields like Priroslomnoye in the Pechora Sea and substantial natural gas reserves in the Stockman Field in the Barents Sea. Technological advancements have allowed Russia to overcome the harsh Arctic environment, characterized by extreme temperatures and ice-covered waters. Investments in ice-resistant drilling platforms, such as the Priroslomnoye platform, and specialized icebreakers have been pivotal in facilitating these operations. Climate change, however, has profound implications for hydrocarbon development in the Arctic, where temperatures are rising at twice the global rate. Over the past 50 years, the region has seen significant declines in sea ice and snow cover, increased permafrost thaw, and intensified hydrological activity. Despite holding over 35,700 billion cubic meters of natural gas and more than 2,300 million metric tons of oil and condensate, successful extraction is contingent on extensive physical infrastructure, political stability, and careful consideration of environmental factors. Russia's strategy includes expanding fossil fuel extraction and enhancing the Northern Sea Route (NSR) for distribution, which saw 30.28 million tons of traffic in 2019, with ambitions to reach 80 million tons by 2024 and operate 13 heavy-duty icebreakers by 2035. Nevertheless, the development faces challenges from permafrost thaw, sea ice variability, and sea level rise, which could damage infrastructure and increase operational costs. The interplay of these factors with evolving environmental conditions and global market dynamics underscores the complexity of Russia's Arctic hydrocarbon strategy, which highlights the strategic importance and the challenges of resource extraction in the region. 5. North Pole 1 Drifting Station. On February 19, 1938, the North Pole 1 NP1 drifting station, the first of its kind, concluded its landmark mission with the successful evacuation of its 4 researchers by the Soviet icebreakers Temir and Merman from a drifting ice floe near Greenland. Initiated by a resolution on February 13, 1936, to set up a polar research station, NP1 was meticulously planned and executed by a team led by expedition head Ivan Papanin. The crew comprised hydrobiologist Pyotr Shirshov, astronomer Yevgeny Fyodorov, and radio operator Ernst Krenkel, supported by figures like Otto Schmidt and renowned polar pilots Mikhail Vodopyanov and Vasily Molokov. The initial base was established on Rudolph Island in the Franz Josef Land archipelago, where workers built a fully equipped camp for the expedition. On June 6, 1937, the team was transported to the Arctic on a large ice floe, where they set up the station for a 274-day drift. During this period, NP1 traveled over 2,000 kilometers from the North Pole to Greenland, providing invaluable data on Arctic meteorology, sea currents, ice conditions, and magnetic fields. The expedition revealed the absence of large land masses near the North Pole, the presence of warm Atlantic waters beneath the ice, and the occurrence of cyclones similar to those in more temperate regions. These findings contradict previous assumptions about the Arctic's harsh conditions and lifelessness, showcasing the dynamic nature of the region's climate and environment. The successful operation of NP1 established a precedent for future Arctic research, leading to a series of Soviet drifting stations, with NP2 launched in 1950 and continued operations until 1991. The data collected over the decades contributed significantly to the understanding of Arctic processes, climate, and navigation, marking a pioneering achievement in polar research. The next station, NP32, was re-established in 2003 after a 12-year hiatus, continuing the legacy of Arctic exploration and study. 6. Wrangel Island. The Wrangel Island was discovered in 1876 by the explorer Ferdinand von Wrangel. Apart from the island being named after him, it is since then the island has become a hotspot for scientists and researchers alike. It is an isolated landmark in the Arctic Ocean which is situated about 140 kilometers from the Siberian coast and is a part of the Russian Arctic National Park. The island is often associated with glaciers, rough terrains, freezing temperatures, and exclusive wildlife native to the area. The habitat is crucial for polar bears, which can mostly be spotted on the shores hunting for seals. Along with deer, a wide variety of birds can also be spotted on the island, as the island is an important place for migratory birds. One of the rarest creatures named Pacific walrus is also found on the island, which makes it an important spot for mammal protection. The island has been an important part of the Soviets' discovery in terms of understanding the environmental conditions of the Arctic region better and getting to know more about the wildlife that exists in the Arctic. 7. Aliens, or extraterrestrial beings under the sea. At this point, honestly, aliens as a topic of discussion has become so general that it often gets difficult to think of a creative opening for this mystery that was encountered by the Soviets. But why are scientists, researchers, historians, and common people, including skeptics, so interested in UFOs, unidentified flying objects, or the USOs, unidentified submerged objects? What is so fascinating about these supposed creatures is that people from different fields of research and study cannot help but be stuck up on getting their hands on one. This goes back to the several discussions between scientists from space organizations when we began exploring space and receiving unidentified signals from parts of the universe that cannot be decoded to this day. To say that the universe is vast would be an understatement. The sheer size of our solar system and the galaxies that have coincided to create this whole mechanism is beyond human comprehension. While there have been attempts to understand what is out there, scientists can't help but think of other forms of life existing that are much more capable, advanced, and better equipped than us. Much of their focus has been on space and other mysterious locations of the world which might provide evidence that aliens rather did visit us at some point in time. A few popular opinions of their visits come from the construction of the Great Pyramids of Giza and the giant Stonehenge in England. While the world was focused on space and these concrete structures above land and sky, the Soviets decided to take a dip in their waters. This decision of theirs exposed them to something mysterious that was neither witnessed nor spoken of ever before. It was during the late 1960s or 1970s when the Soviets had their nuclear submarine vessels installed in the frigid waters of Antarctica. While the submarine was doing its thing beneath the water, the navigation system picked up something strange. The radar showcased 6 unidentified objects who were closing in on them at lightning speeds and showed evasive maneuvers which left the people inside the crew baffled. The captain and the rest of the crew were immediately alarmed, and as a result, they took defensive measures to prepare themselves for the worst. The fighting stations were ready, and the torpedoes were loaded in case things got ugly. However, the crew noticed something strange. The disc-like structures that were on the submarine's tail were not slowing down. So fearing that it might end up in a collision, the captain asked the submarine to come to a halt. If things were not as confusing as it is, the 6 discs slowed down as well. It was as if they were mimicking the movements of the Russian vessel. This gave the Soviets enough time to reach the surface. Those 6 vessels followed the submarine, and as slowly as they emerged from the water, the metallic discs revealed themselves to the people. Without even wasting a second, the supposed UFOs took away at mind-boggling speed just to disappear in the skies above. As per reports from the crew, those objects could easily travel at anywhere about 230 knots 400 kilometers per hour and dive as deep as 10,000 meters 32,000 feet. However, the case remained hidden within the classified files of the Soviets, and not without reason. At the time, topics such as UFOs and aliens were not supposed to be discussed publicly, and with a war going on, no one was least concerned about something that cannot be proven yet. When the Soviets thought that things could not get any more eerie than they were, this happened. In 1982, a group of Soviet divers decided to dive in Lake Baikal, which is the world's biggest freshwater lake present in the world, located in Siberia. Something to keep in mind is that they were not any ordinary divers. Those were the Soviet Navy who were diving in the freezing water of Lake Baikal as one of their training drills. At a depth of 50 meters, approximately 165 feet, the divers noticed something unanticipated. They saw humanoid figures before them, but their appearance, clothing, and physical features did not resemble those of an ordinary person on this planet. The humanoid figures were about 3 meters 10 feet tall and wore tight silver suits, as if just thrown out of a science fiction movie. Divers could not comprehend what they saw in front of them. A few other shocking details of the incident include the swift speed with which the beings were moving within the water, and how effortlessly they could dive at this incredible depth without a diving suit or any advanced gear. What happened next was the perfect material to go into the classified files of the Soviets. In a manner of instincts and following their training, the divers decided to capture one of them, intending to take it up to the surface and investigate the creature further. With this, they hoped to get details on what the creature was and probably its origin. While this would have been a world-bending find, the creatures had other plans for them. As the divers tried to approach one of them, they were blown away to the surface by a strong unknown force. Out of the 7, 3 succumbed to the fatal injuries and decompression sickness, often known as the bends, and the other 4 sustained multiple injuries. The Russian military covered it up until some of the information was leaked from their classified files. Nick Pope, who served in the British Ministry of Defense from 1985 to 2006, insisted on the fact that whatever the Soviets encountered in the 1960s or 70s and 1982 at Lake Baikal is not human. Even with today's technology, human-made machines, vehicles, and aircraft cannot perform operations that those 6 discs could do in the 1980s. Additionally, Nick states that the Soviets discovered humanoid figures in a corner as remote as Siberia, and those environmental conditions are a testament to their high level of skills and training and add weight to their theory of discovering or coming across aliens. A UFO researcher and host of the show UFO Classified, Erica Luke, has gone on record to say that the high level of detail provided by the Soviets in terms of what they saw makes their theory believable. Adding on to that, she certainly believes that with the evasive maneuvers and speed of the 6 flying saucers, it has to be something out of this world, where speculations have pointed out the fact that these creatures might have been living in our waters before we even knew it. With more than 95% of the ocean being left unexplored, one cannot point a finger at what can and cannot be. With recent oceanic discoveries revealing fascinating discoveries, the likes of which humans have not seen before, one can only acknowledge the fact that aliens or their home might be down there. All things considered, these are still believable theories, as there is no confirmation of top researchers considering them to be true. What do you think? Was it just a hallucination, or is there actually something lurking in the icy waters of Siberia which does not belong to the planet? Feel free to flood the comment section below with your theories and answers. 8. Yermak and Taimyr expeditions. Named after the famous Russian explorer Yermak Timofeyevich, this expedition of the Russians turned out to be an icebreaker in understanding the Arctic's environment and geological conditions. Get the pun, icebreaker? Well, it was the exact purpose for which it was designed for. In 1898, the Russian Navy commissioned and launched Yermak as the world's first true icebreaker, which held the capacity of operating as a standalone equipment within the polar ice. The first successful expedition took place in 1899, under the commanding officer Admiral Stepan Makarov. The ship set out from Kronstadt and navigated through the Barents Seas and went towards the Svalbard archipelago. It successfully reached the high northern latitudes and overcame severe icy conditions on the way, which underscores its capability as an ice-operating equipment. The next expedition took place in 1901, where it went further north and ended up reaching the Franz Josef Land archipelago. Despite facing extreme weather conditions, the equipment was able to map and get crucial information about uncharted territory in the Arctic, which contributed significantly to the learning of the Arctic as an icy landmass. The Taimyr expedition refers to a series of expeditions carried out in the Arctic region, and the icebreaker was named after the Taimyr Peninsula in Siberia. It was conducted by the icebreakers Taimyr and Vigok, which was under the Imperial Russian Navy and Hydrographic Department. Under their leadership, it aimed to explore the Northern Sea Route and gather scientific data about the Arctic regions between 1910 and 1915. Led by Captain Boris Vilkitsky, the 1910 to 1911 expedition focused on the Kara Sea and the northern Siberian coast, conducting extensive hydrographic surveys and mapping uncharted areas despite severe ice conditions. In 1913 to 1914, the icebreakers reached the New Siberian Islands, discovering new islands and confirming the route's navigability. The pinnacle of these efforts was in 1915, when Taimyr and Vigok completed the first successful navigation of the Northern Sea Route from west to east, proving the feasibility of this passage for future maritime trade. These expeditions made substantial scientific contributions, providing accurate maps and data on sea currents, ice conditions, and climate, and displaying the effectiveness of modern ice-breaking vessels. The discovery of geographic features, including the Vilkitsky Islands, was crucial for navigation, marking a significant achievement in Arctic exploration and paving the way for future endeavors in the polar regions. 9. Climate manipulation. Climate change has profound and multifaceted impacts on Russia and the Arctic region, as it presents both challenges and opportunities. In the Arctic, temperatures are rising at more than twice the global average, which has led to significant environmental changes over the past 50 years. This warming has resulted in a significant decline in sea ice levels, reduced snow cover, increased permafrost thaw, and an intensified hydrological cycle. These changes are reshaping the physical landscape and ecological balance of the Arctic, with consequences for both local communities and global climate systems. For Russia, the Arctic is of particular strategic importance due to its vast untapped hydrocarbon reserves. The Russian Arctic holds over 35,700 billion cubic meters of natural gas and more than 2,300 million metric tons of oil and condensate, primarily concentrated in the Amur and Jaidan peninsulas. These resources are crucial for Russia's economy and energy strategy. However, the extraction and transportation of these hydrocarbons are complicated by the harsh Arctic environment, which includes extreme temperatures, ice-covered waters, and the challenges posed by permafrost thaw and sea ice variability. The melting of Arctic sea ice has opened new maritime routes, such as the Northern Sea Route (NSR), which Russia aims to develop as a primary channel for transporting hydrocarbons to global markets. In 2019, the NSR saw 30.28 million tons of traffic, with plans to increase this to 80 million tons by 2024. This route offers a shorter path between Europe and Asia, potentially reducing shipping times and costs. To support this development, Russia is investing in icebreakers, with plans to operate 13 heavy-duty linear icebreakers by 2035, 9 of which will be nuclear-powered. Despite these opportunities, climate change poses significant risks to infrastructure and ecosystems. Thawing permafrost can damage buildings, pipelines, and roads, therefore resulting in increased maintenance costs and the risk of accidents. Sea level rise and coastal erosion threaten coastal communities and infrastructure. Additionally, the environmental impact of increased fossil fuel extraction and transportation contributes to further warming, both locally through emissions like black carbon and globally through increased greenhouse gas concentrations. Russia's approach to Arctic development is also influenced by geopolitical considerations. The Arctic's resources and strategic position have led to increased international interest and competition. Russia's assertive policies aim to secure its control over the region, where it balances economic ambitions with the need for environmental protection and international cooperation overall. Climate change in the Arctic is a complex issue that intertwines environmental, economic, and geopolitical factors. For Russia, navigating these challenges requires balancing the exploitation of its vast natural resources with the need to adapt to and mitigate the impacts of a rapidly changing climate. This delicate balance will shape the future of the Arctic region and its role in global energy markets and climate systems. The Arctic is without a doubt one of the most fascinating places on the planet. With extreme temperature conditions, wildlife that is just trying to survive, and uncovers secrets buried within the freezing waters and thick layers of ice, it is safe to say that the Arctic is in control of nature. While there are rich hydrocarbon reserves present in the Arctic, it can turn out to be a double-edged sword. Economic benefits at the cost of the environment are a debatable topic that cannot be decided by Russia alone. So at which end of the scale will it land remains a mystery to us until the coming future. Apart from that, the presence of extraterrestrial beings seems to be the most interesting topic of discussion. Who were those humanoid creatures that were spotted by the Russian Navy troops while training? How long have they been living among us? Where did those UFOs come from? Who can possess a technology so advanced that it can travel in sea and air at such fascinating speeds? How were those humanoid creatures able to throw the seals out of the water without even touching them? Finding the answers to such questions has left us scratching our heads. Is it something that needs to be discovered?